News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
Missoula and Montana celebrates Veterans Day. Good morning, everyone. Montana Morning, congratulations. You made it. It's Friday, November 11th, 2016. Right now, we do have dense fog in the Missoula area. There is a dense fog advisory continuing all the way until 11 o'clock this morning. So we're going to be living with this for a while. Right now, it's 28 degrees in Missoula. Our newscast sponsored by Western States Cat. Time to get ready for winter. Western States Cat, where branded antifreeze and DEF, 10% off right now. Well, today is Veterans Day. There'll be activities throughout the Missoula area for veterans and their families. Brian Becker, Outreach Program Specialist at the Missoula Vet Center, said the day will start with breakfast at 2 different locations.
Region Hall at 825 Ronan Street. We'll have breakfast. It's free and open to the public from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then Old Beck, BFW Post 209 at 245 West Main Street. We'll have breakfast from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., and that'll be donation-based.
Forgotten Warriors Post 101 Commander Dan Gallagher's family will be handling the ceremony at the courthouse on Friday, where he told me the theme will be Women Are Veterans, Too.
In this war in Afghanistan and in Iraq, there have been a higher number of casualties among women veterans, and women are out in the recent months. Women have been authorized combat duty, so it's figured that it's time to acknowledge that.
The featured speaker at the courthouse ceremony at 11 o'clock this morning will be Montana's Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney. A Lame Deer woman who pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter in the November 2014 stabbing death of her common-law husband has been sentenced to time served and 3 years of supervised release. The Billings Gazette reports 40-year-old Tanya Bear Comes Out was sentenced yesterday for the November 22, 2014 death. The man, identified in court records by the initial BB, died of a stab wound to the heart. Bear Comes Out entered her plea in August, saying she stabbed the man during a fight in which he was beating her and hit her head against the sink. U.S. District Judge Susan Waters said Bear Comes Out has already served 17 months in the Northern Cheyenne tribal custody on essentially the same charge and will be returned to tribal custody to finish the 36 days still remaining in her sentence. Glacier National Park has issued an interim closure of all park waters to protect against possible spread of invasive mussel populations recently found in central Montana. Here's Management Assistant Lauren Alley.
Yesterday, the state of Montana announced that invasive mussels were detected in other areas of central Montana. Now, the park has a plan in place that says if invasive mussels are detected in other places within the state, will issue an immediate interim closure of all waterways for boating.
Alley explains why park officials are taking such a threat so seriously.
Because boats come to Glacier from all areas of the state and, in fact, all areas of the country and even up into Canada, we see this as a threat that we need to take very seriously. You know, those boats that are in those waterways could make their way up to Glacier, and we need to ensure that we have protocols in place to address that threat and ensure that any boats that have come into contact with those invasive mussels don't get into the waters in the park.
Alley would not commit to a definite date when the park's waterways would reopen to boaters and canoeists. For the first time in state history, more than 500,000 Montanans voted in a general election. Secretary of State Linda McCullough says voter turnout for Tuesday's election was 504,409, or just over 73% of the 693,253 registered voters. The voter turnout in 2008 was 74.5%, when nearly 497,600 people voted. All counties have reported their vote totals, but election results are unofficial until all the county and state canvasses are complete. Provisional ballot totals will be available later this week. Latest figures indicate 354,897 absentee ballots were issued. Nearly 94% were returned. More than 25,600 people took advantage of late registration options, including over 10,300 who registered and voted on Election Day. Some of the late registrations were due to address changes. And with that in mind, Missoula produced a heavy turnout at the polls for Tuesday's presidential election, one that saw the Big Sky State turn red for Trump, Zinke, and a host of other statewide races, despite the heavy local Democratic voting population here in Missoula. Elections Administrator Rebecca Connors said turnout both at the polls with absentee ballots was high.
We had phenomenal turnout for voters this election cycle. cycle. We had over 71% voter turnout. We had 85% absentee voter turnout. So everybody came out for this election. It's been high profile for the last 2 years, and everybody was ready to get it done.
Connors said in addition to many voters who had allowed their registrations to lapse, there were a great many who were first-time voters.
In just the 29 days and on Election Day, just some anecdotal evidence, we saw a lot of voters who had never voted before in their lifetime, and these are people 50s, 60s, 70s even, who said this election was important and came out to vote.
Connors said she and her staff had 3 different satellite locations to help voters register for the general election in Frenchtown, Seeley Lake, and on the UM campus. Since the year 2000, many have pointed to Montana as an example of a purple state governance where both Republicans and Democrats have narrow margins of dominance and share in governmental management. After Tuesday's election, though, Montana Republican Party Chairman Jeff Espin says Montana's color has changed.
I believe we've tipped the state from being a purple state to a red state at this point. Republicans are in firm control of both houses of the legislature. We have all 5 seats on the Public Service Commission. We have 4 out of the 5 seats on the Land Board, and we just narrowly lost the governorship.
On paper, the Republicans' power in the state legislature looks very similar to how it looked during the last session, when Republicans proved to be sharply divided on multiple issues. Espin believes this session will be different.
Washington, D.C., which is now also under Republican control, President-elect Trump and both houses of Congress will be significantly different than the policy initiatives that were pursued by President Obama. Because of that, I believe the initiatives that come from D.C. will tend to be issues that will unite Montana Republicans rather than divide us.
Although the state is much more red than it was, there are still 2 very prominent positions held by Democrats. The Senate seat held by John Tester, who's up for re-election in 2 years, and the governorship was re-elected, of course, by Steve Bullock. Espin says Republicans are hard at work to find replacements for those seats as well. And a Billings contractor has been convicted of defrauding the Chippewa Cree tribe and bribing tribal officials to get preferential treatment for $2.5 million in federally funded contracts. The Billings Gazette reports a jury found Kevin McGovern guilty of conspiracy and scheme to defraud the tribe and the federal government and bribery. His company, CMG Construction, was convicted of the same charges. His sentencing is set for February. Our News Talk time now is 6:12.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Dense freezing fog this morning. Visibility as low as a quarter of a mile at times. The fog will mix out by midday and we'll see our temperatures warming into the upper 50s. We bring in a slight chance of a shower Saturday. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for KECI 13.